Do you have high cholesterol or high blood pressure or clogged arteries? Well, this is actually quite complicated. Your cardiovascular health needs a lot of context. Today, I'm going to explain everything for you. Man, every single day, it's in my DMs, it's in my comments. Everyone's asking me about cholesterol. Well, let me tell you, it's not what you think. So now, let's begin. The pharmaceutical industry is making a fortune off of statin drugs. This is because they've convinced you, the public, that high cholesterol causes heart attacks. If your lab report says your cholesterol is high, your primary care physician prescribes the statins. Why? Because this is what this medical monkey has been trained to do. I think it's significant to note that back in 1901, there was a German chemist commissioned to come up with a lubricant oil for engineers in submarines. However, because submarines are such a small market, this lubricant oil didn't sell well. He eventually sold the patent to a corporation called Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble took the patent and tried to sell soap with the oil, but that failed. Now what? Eventually, Procter & Gamble used this lubricant oil to create a new brand of cooking agent called Crisco. The whole spin on Crisco was that it was a healthier alternative than cooking with animal products such as butter, ghee, or lard. They created a whole marketing narrative that animal fat causes high cholesterol, which leads to heart attacks. In the 1950s, there was a $1.7 million deal made between the American Medical Association and Procter & Gamble to promote this narrative. This was a lot of money back then. This deal was brokered by a man named Ancel Keys, who was on the board of directors for the AMA and was sort of the Dr. Anthony Fauci of his era. With the AMA's support, medical doctors started demonizing animal fats to their patients. The public started to eat low-fat and low-cholesterol diets as the advertising campaigns hit the radio shows, billboards, and magazines. With the birth of cable television later on, came a huge fat-free and cholesterol-free campaign of products such as margarine. The plan worked. In 1987, a new drug came out called statins. When you go on statin drugs, it creates inflammation of the liver purposely, which halts the body's production of cholesterol. Soon, this drug was prescribed to millions of Americans who tested high for cholesterol. Perhaps the biggest consequence of this American Medical Association deal with Procter & Gamble was the rise of Alzheimer's, a type of dementia that no one even knew how to pronounce before 1990. Now, as of this writing, Alzheimer's is a household name because it's the third biggest killing disease in America. Third. The most mind-blowing revelation that came out of this horrible shift in American culture was that heart disease never went down. It's currently reported that Americans have a heart attack every 40 seconds. Cardiovascular, aka heart disease, is the number one killer in the world. Here are the root causes of heart disease from my head-to-toe healing perspective. So cholesterol is a waxy, alkaline, sterile substance that makes up your stress hormones, cell membranes, and about 75% of your brain, including the myelin, which is insulation of nerves. Cholesterol is too waxy and cannot be transported through the blood without help of a lipoprotein. This lipoprotein is a vehicle that transports this nutrient throughout the body, including into the arteries. There are 3 different sizes of lipoproteins, which are named HDL, LDL, and VLDL. The medical monopoly calls HDL the good cholesterol and LDL the bad cholesterol. As for LVDL, well, they don't tell you anything about that because they're not trained to. Think of lipoproteins as vehicles on the road, and think of cholesterol as passengers that are in those vehicles. Think of HDL as a truck and LDL as a car. It's not a different kind of cholesterol. Cholesterol is cholesterol. It's just a different size. LDL is deemed as bad because the car can fit in your tunnel, which would be the arteries. And HDL is considered good because it's a truck that can't fit in the tunnel or your arteries. But it's still both cholesterol particles. If LDL comes back high in your blood labs, the doctors just assumes that you're at risk for a traffic jam, and they prescribe statin drugs. They do not provide any context to your situation at all. Now, a true doctor would first have to evaluate if your high cholesterol biomarker is from the cholesterol you are eating or the cholesterol your body is making. There's a huge difference. If it's from the cholesterol you are eating, you're pretty safe as it's floating in your blood just like other vitamins and minerals. Now, if it's coming from your liver, then obviously your body is trying to put out a fire because that's what your body does. Please understand, cholesterol is alkaline, which means it's a great way for the body to put out inflammation. It's a fact that your body uses cholesterol, as well as calcium, to put out inflammation. Therefore, if you do have cholesterol or calcium plaqued up in your arteries, it has nothing to do with the cholesterol or calcium you are eating, and everything to do with what caused the inflammation in the first place. If a building was on fire, wouldn't there be an investigation as to what started the fire? A great example of this is when a vegan comes to me and can't understand why they have high cholesterol. They don't eat cholesterol at all. They eat plants. This means they are inflamed and their liver is overcompensating. It's obvious, but your medical monopoly doctor doesn't understand the concept due to a lack of training. So, what's the root cause of these plaqued arteries, known as atherosclerosis? These are the 3 culprits. Number 1, free radical damage. All that oxidative stress coming into your body from the poor 4 foods and or environmental stressors such as pollution and pesticides, they need to be neutralized before it bonds with cells. Once it bonds with cells, it creates damage and your body goes into a state of inflammation. Number 2, blood sugar. If you're not processing sugar properly, then the sugar is staying in your blood for way too long, and that's going to create inflammation. At the root, this is nutritional deficiency because certain minerals are needed to process sugar. So if you're deficient and you keep eating and drinking sugar, well, you're in trouble. Number 3 is blood pressure. When your blood pressure is out of control, it stretches the arteries, veins, and capillaries, which hardens them. At the root, this can be nutritional deficiency, obesity, or just too much stress. So, your body witnesses these root causes and it either sends out cholesterol, calcium, or it starts creating scarring tissue to try and protect you. You see, the body is wise, yet ignorant. It's trying to save you, but it doesn't realize that by saving you, it's also clogging you up. It's up to you to gain the understanding of what's happening to your machine so you can now hack into the algorithm of your body and keep yourself safe. In order to know if you're at risk for cardiovascular/heart disease, which is the number one killer in the world, you must take a few tests. Number one, a calcium scoring test. This is a very quick X-ray scan of your arteries and it shows blockages. Now, I'm not a fan of radiation, but I think this test is worth having around the age of 40 and then every 10 years after. Number two, CRP. This is your C-reactive protein, which measures inflammation in your cardiovascular system. Number three, triglycerides. This is a type of fat found in your blood that comes from unused calories. They're stored in your fat cells, and then later on, hormones release triglycerides for energy between your meals. Number four, ApoB. This is the apolipoprotein B that carries your LDL, or small particles of cholesterol, into the arteries. Now, most medical doctors don't even order this test. Remember, like I taught you in my book, Peace Over Pain, medical doctors are soldiers that follow orders, so they are restricted on what blood labs they can order because the insurance companies have them by the you-know-what. Please note, for more severe cases, there's also a NP test, which assesses an acute type of situation with the heart. Any doctor worth their salt would look at these 4 or 5 tests and decide if you need medical intervention. For example, if you had high cholesterol and your calcium scoring test, CRP, ApoB, and triglycerides were okay, high cholesterol on your lab report would obviously be you're either eating a lot of animal foods, which is okay, or your liver is overcompensating. Instead, they only look at your LDL so they can get the revenue stream of the statins going. The biggest cause of heart disease is type 2 diabetes. My dad is a perfect example. He always comes up in my books and videos, doesn't he? He had open heart surgery at 47 years old. He was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes around 5 years before that surgery. He was also told that he had prediabetes back when he was in his 20s. Now, he's in his late 70s and he's on dialysis. So there's a spectrum here. Type 2 diabetes is a progressive condition. Of course, they put him on statin drugs as soon as it came out in 1987. They said this new drug would help him, but it didn't. He still had a heart attack. He still had open heart surgery, and his kidneys are now failing. Sugar destroys all arteries, veins, and capillaries. Hence, type 2 diabetes is one of the medical monopoly's biggest earners. Look, if your cholesterol score is high, it's simply a biomarker that's indicating something to you. You can just as easily view it like any other vitamin or mineral. It's a signal to get off the poor 4 foods and top yourself off with the 90 essential nutrients. There's no reason to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Very truly, I can say that having high cholesterol is way better than having low cholesterol. It's a much needed soft tissue nutrient that nourishes your brain and balances your hormones. Even the word cholesterol indicates hormones with sterol in the name, cholesterol. You may be surprised to hear that I've had many people heal numerous chronic diseases in my reversal system who have had total cholesterol scores above 300. The medical monopoly would faint if you had over 300. As long as the calcium scoring test, CRP, ApoB, and triglycerides are okay, you're okay. If you listen to the medical monopoly, you will probably end up with a cholesterol deficiency that can contribute to up to 25 different so-called diseases, including the most famous one, and perhaps the most vicious one, Alzheimer's. The entire baby boomer generation was conned into a low-fat, low cholesterol, and low-salt mentality that has proven to be devastating to society. Now, if you're not ready to leave the medical monopoly and take on head-to-toe healing, I urge you to keep watching my videos and reading my books. And when you're ready, just schedule a call with my team. I'll leave you a link below. You see, we're here to empower you, teach you, and guide you. But we're looking for the right people at the right time. I wish peace and love to you and your family, and I'll talk to you soon.